Amani, just sign the damn papers. Why are you stalling? Do you know how much I've sacrificed to build this life with you?
I'm not stalling, Julian. I just want to make sure every detail is perfect. This is a legal commitment, not a grocery list.
Details? The only detail that matters is that we're married, and I need my status finalized so I can start contributing. You say you love me, but you're holding my future hostage.
He slammed his palm on the marble counter. His eyes burning with a hunger he tried to mask as ambition. He thought he was the predator. He stood there in a silk shirt I'd bought him, looking like the hero of his own story, unaware that the floor beneath him had already rotted away. Julian didn't marry me for my soul. He married me for a blue passport he thought was tucked safely in my top drawer. He spent his days performing the role of the doting, desperate to work husband, while his nights were spent texting his real life back in London, promising her that his investment in me would pay off soon. He was so focused on the finish line of his residency that he never bothered to check the engine of the woman driving him there. What Julian didn't know was that my American dream was a beautiful, hollow shell. I wasn't the wealthy, secure citizen he'd scouted at that tech mixer. I was a freelance developer living on a prayer, and my passport had expired 14 months ago. I wasn't his ticket to a green card. I was a ticking deportation clock. As I watched him pace the room, I realized the trap wasn't just set. He had already walked inside and locked the door himself. The gaslighting became his full-time job. Every morning, Julian would brew my favorite roast, leaning against the counter with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "You look tired, baby. It's the stress of all this paperwork, isn't it? Let me handle the lawyer's fees this month." He'd say it with such faux chivalry, knowing full well he was using the joint credit card I'd mistakenly authorized. He was playing the part of the provider-in-waiting, a man just one signature away from saving us both. It was a masterclass in manipulation. He wanted me to feel guilty for every day his legal life remained in limbo. I'd watch him from across the dinner table, scrolling through luxury condos on his phone, already spending the money he thought I had stashed away. He didn't know I was watching his reflection in the darkened window. I saw him smirk when I turned my head. He thought I was a naive, lonely woman so desperate for his affection that I'd overlook the inconsistencies in his stories. "Once the papers go through, Amani, I'm taking you to Paris," he promised. I just nodded, sipping my wine, thinking about the fact that I couldn't even cross the state line without a valid ID, let alone the Atlantic. He was decorating a mansion built on a sinkhole, and I was the only one who knew the ground was about to give way. I spent my afternoons at the public library, not at work, meticulously researching the penalties for marriage fraud. I wasn't just stalling, I was building a dossier. Every sweet text he sent me was screenshotted and backed up. Every time he mentioned the papers instead of us, I logged it. I was no longer a wife. I was a private investigator in my own home. The first real crack happened on a Tuesday. We were at a local bistro when a friend of mine from the embassy walked in. My heart stopped. If she spoke to me, the expired truth would be out in the open before I was ready. Julian was mid-sentence, complaining about how unfair it was that he couldn't get a high-paying job without his social security card. He was so deep in his own victimhood that he didn't notice my hands shaking as I reached for my water. "Amani, is that you? I haven't seen you since the—" "Sarah, so good to see you." I cut her off, my voice a pitch too high. "We're just heading out, but I'll call you." I practically dragged Julian out of the booth. In the car, the predator finally showed his teeth. "What was that? You acted like she was a ghost. Are you hiding something from me?" The irony was so thick I could taste it. He was trying to flip the script, making me the suspicious one to keep me off balance. It's a classic move. Accuse the victim of the very thing you're doing. I just didn't want to be interrupted, Julian. "You were saying something important," I lied, my voice smooth as silk. He stared at me, his eyes narrowing, trying to find a lie in my expression. Just make sure the lawyer has everything for Friday, Amani. I'm tired of waiting. He didn't realize that Sarah wasn't a threat to me, she was a threat to his timeline. I had to move faster. The happy couple act was wearing thin, and the smell of desperation was starting to outweigh his expensive cologne. I went home and made one final phone call to an old contact. The stage was set for the lawyer's office, and Julian was already practicing his victory speech. The immigration lawyer's office was cold, smelling of stale coffee and old carpet. Julian sat in the leather chair like it was a throne, his legs crossed, a designer briefcase, bought with my money, resting on his lap. He looked at the lawyer, Mr. Vance, with an air of let's get this over with so I can start my real life. He even reached over and squeezed my hand, a final, public display of a love that didn't exist. Everything is here, Mr. Vance, Julian said, sliding a folder across the desk. The marriage certificate, the joint accounts, the photos of our wedding. Amani just needs to provide her citizenship proof to finalize the sponsorship. Mr. Vance didn't look at the photos. He looked at me, then at the blue passport I slowly placed on the desk. Julian's eyes lit up like a kid on Christmas. He actually leaned forward, his fingers twitching. There it is, he whispered. Mr. Vance opened the passport. He flipped through the pages, his brow furrowing. He looked up at Julian, then back at the document. Mr. Julian, there's a significant problem here. This passport expired 14 months ago. Furthermore, this isn't a U.S. passport, it's a foreign one, and the last entry stamp shows an overstay of over a year. The silence that followed was visceral. I watched the blood drain from Julian's face, turning him a ghostly, sickly gray. He looked at the passport, then at me, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. What? No, Amani, you're a citizen, you told me. The business, the house. I never said I was a citizen, Julian, I said, my voice steady and cold. You just assumed because I had money that I had a status. You were so busy looking for a gold mine that you forgot to check if it was even in this country. The viral moment didn't happen in private, it happened right there in the lobby as we walked out. Julian lost his mind. He wasn't the charming husband anymore, he was a frantic, cornered animal. You trapped me, you let me marry you knowing I'd be tied to an illegal. I spent everything on you, that ring cost me my life savings. He was screaming, oblivious to the people in the waiting room holding their phones up, capturing the golden groom, having a total meltdown. You didn't spend a dime on me, Julian, I shouted back, loud enough for every camera to hear. You used my credit cards, my name, and my bed to try and scam a country. You didn't marry a woman, you tried to marry a border crossing. How does it feel to be the one who got used? He lunged for my bag, his face a mask of pure, unadulterated rage, screaming that I had ruined his life. But I wasn't alone. 2 men in plain clothes stepped out from the elevators. Julian froze. He thought they were there for me. He actually pointed at me, a desperate, traitorous smirk forming on his lips. Take her. She's the one who's overstayed. She's the fraud. Actually, Mr. Julian, one of the men said, flashing a badge. We're here for you. Marriage fraud with the intent to circumvent immigration laws is a federal offense. And we have 3 months of your text messages to a woman in London explaining exactly how you were going to drain the mark and vanish. The look of absolute, soul-crushing defeat on his face was better than any bank balance. He realized in that second that the lonely woman had been the one holding the leash the entire time. He wasn't being deported because of my expired passport. He was being arrested because of his own big mouth. 3 weeks later, I stood at the same airport where I'd first met Julian. But I wasn't there to meet a man. I was there to meet a destiny I'd finally earned. My overstay hadn't been a mistake. It had been a complication I was already solving through a legitimate high-skills visa program that Julian never bothered to ask about. He was so blinded by the easy way that he didn't realize I was doing the hard way right next to him. Julian was already gone, deported and permanently barred from re-entry, his American dream ending in a cramped seat in the back of a commercial flight. He tried to use my life as a stepping stone, only to find out I was a cliff. I pulled out my new valid papers, signed, sealed, and earned through my own sweat and talent, not a fraudulent ring. I looked at the $5,000 watch he'd bought me with my own money. I took it off and dropped it into a charity donation bin at Terminal 4. I didn't want anything that reminded me of the predator who thought I was prey. As I walked toward my gate, I felt lighter than I had in years. I had lost a husband, but I had gained my self-respect back. The best way to catch a snake is to let him think you're the grass. I boarded my flight, not as a woman hiding in the shadows, but as the CEO of my own future. The world is a big place when you aren't looking over your shoulder. And as for Julian, I heard he's back in London, living in his mother's basement, still telling anyone who will listen that he was cheated out of a fortune. Some people never learn that a passport might expire, but a bad character is permanent. Julian tried to scam his way into a country by using Amani's heart, but he fell into his own trap. Do you think Amani was a hero for turning him in, or was she just as toxic for letting the marriage happen just to catch him? Subscribe, like, and share if you love seeing a scammer get what's coming to them. See you on the next one.